Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and I can't start today's show without talking about the ISO 10002. You know, some people just love to complain, but companies have a responsibility to care. The International Organization for Standardization, ISO, has revised ISO 10002, the standard for complaint handling. This document enables organizations to foster a customer-focused environment open to feedback, heightening their customer satisfaction. You can get the ISO 10002 standard from the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, the U.S. member body of ISO. Visit ANSI.org/complain to learn more. That's ANSI.org/complain to learn more.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Josh Skolnick, Zach Beutler, and Erik Van Horn of Horsepower Brands. And Horsepower Brands is a portfolio company of franchise brands in the service industry, delivering first-in-class customer service and experiences. We're going to talk to Josh, Zach, and Erik about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Josh Skolnick, Zach Beutler, and Erik Van Horn of Horsepower Brands. And Horsepower Brands is a portfolio company of franchise brands in the service industry, delivering first-in-class customer service and experiences. Hi, Josh. Hi, Zach. Hi, Erik. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Marty. Today.
Thank you. I'm doing great, gentlemen. It's great to have all three of you on the show at the same time today. I was saying to my wife earlier, it's funny. Last time I did this, where I had three guests on the same slot, was 14 years ago with a franchise called PB Loco. So I might be a little bit rusty. So it's great to have all three of you on the show today, though. Why don't we start with? I see all three of you are calling from different locations. Josh, you want to go first? Where are you calling from today?
Yeah, Josh Skolnick, CEO of Horsepower Brands. I'm calling from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia.
Wow, I'm not that far from you, Josh. I'm in Easton, Pennsylvania, and I know Doylestown very well. So it's nice to have you on the show. And how about Zach? Where are you calling from today, Zach?
I'm out here in the motherland, aka Nebraska.
Nice.
Over in Omaha.
That's fantastic. And how about yourself, Erik? Where are you calling from today?
Spearfish, South Dakota. Nobody's probably heard of that before. There's not many of us out.
I haven't heard of it either. So that's the first for our show. So that's terrific. So it's great to have all three of you on this show. And where is the headquarters based, just so our listeners know, for Horsepower Brands?
We're based in Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, fantastic. That's terrific. So I have a feeling that there's a story here. We started the show 14 years ago because we found that, there's typically a story with every franchise, and it's the same thing with Horsepower Brands. So I'll kind of open up the question to any one of you. What led to the formation of Horsepower Brands, and how did the three of you gentlemen come together?
Yes, this is Josh Skolnick. Horsepower Brands really started with the three of us really having a really strong relationship in franchising and knowing each other from all of the various franchising events. My area of expertise came as a franchisor and running very successful franchise brands under Monster Tree Service and then Redbox Plus. And then Zach Beutler had worked with me as well in franchise development and did a fantastic job, awarding franchises. And Erik was a great business, partner on the consultant side, where he had referred a lot of very successful individuals to really investigate our franchise opportunities from the consultant side of the business. And so, as the three of us really grew a long-term personal relationship over the years of working together, we realized that all three of us were really doing something very unique in each one of our roles. And so we felt that if we teamed up together, we could really build something in a very large way and take to scale and deliver unbelievable entrepreneurial experiences to people through franchising by doing the right thing as a franchisor. And one of the things that we believe is so important is not only that we award the franchises that we have to offer, but more importantly, that we open all of the franchisee locations that we do award to those individuals.
So it sounds like, the three of you coming together, Josh, you were kind of, filling a need, I guess you could say, in the franchise industry. I picked up on that too, when I was reading the literature on your organization. You said, do the right thing, and I think that's so important. And, it's interesting in having, your business on the show. We've had, we've done 750 of these podcasts up to this point. We've had a lot of brick and mortar food franchises. There's something special about the services industry, isn't there? It kind of, there's certain advantages to having a service industry versus a brick and mortar, isn't there?
There is, and I can let Zach kind of speak to the advantages that we believe are powerful with home service franchisors, and more importantly, just service-based franchises versus brick and mortar.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, so when you look at different franchise opportunities, I think when you look at all of us, Erik's dad owned a fence company. Josh's dad owned a hardwood flooring business. My dad owned a livestock auction barn in a very small town. So we all grew up in somewhat of a blue-collar household. So we understand that world really well. But yet we've through our years in franchising, have become more sophisticated than probably your typical emerging franchisors. So we like the industries that are service that are needed by all, very dirty and very competitive, yet where there's not a lot of sophistication in those in that competition when you look at technology, lead generation, et cetera. On top of that, typically those are now pandemic-proof, recession-proof. There's a lot of things that go along, a lot of benefits that go along with that compared to, say, retail or food or fitness.
Of course, yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And Horsepower Brands is a family of franchise brands. I've seen all the different brands, but I guess it seems like, one of the newer ones to the mix is Mighty Dog Roofing. Why did you choose to add Mighty Dog Roofing to the family?
Yeah, and I think when you look at different service industries, there's not a national player when you look at roofing.
True.
So
right.
there's not a national player that focuses on residential roofing. On top of that, when Josh, Erik, and I were starting to do our investigation, the early 2000s led to a huge housing boom,
right.
And obviously then led to the downfall of 2007, 2008. But those homes now are coming up needing new roofs. So there is in the next decade, there is going to be an increased demand for those services. And when you talk to the national suppliers like Owens Corning, et cetera, they're already planning that there's going to be shortages in labor, in materials, et cetera, which is going to drive the price up, which means better margins. So what better time to start a roofing franchise than right now?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Zach. It's just funny. I don't know why it just occurred to me is that you're right. I mean, we haven't, in the 14 years of doing the show, had a roofing franchise in all the years of doing the show. So this is a first for me. And it just occurred to me too, Zach. Josh, you might know this. My sister lives in Center Valley, and one of her neighbors recently had their roofs done, and all the houses, of course, are the same age, so it seemed like every single home in the neighborhood got their roof done. So it seems like you guys are in the right place at the right time, aren't you?
We are. We're able to do a lot of guerrilla marketing tactics, especially when certain events occur throughout the year. Hailstorms, wind damage, whether it be getting into a neighborhood for just a roof replacement and being one of the first in the neighborhood. We have very tactical marketing methods that we follow in order to get through to all of the other consumers within that neighborhood so that we can ultimately be the provider that replaces all the roofs and do it at a very competitive price for those consumers.
Yeah, it's very clever. When you're meeting with a prospective franchisee, and let's say you're specifically talking about Mighty Dog Roofing, how do you typically describe the Mighty Dog Roofing concept to, let's say, a prospective franchisee?
So we set it up not as a roofing franchise and more as a sales and marketing franchise. So not a single one of our franchisees are from the actual roofing industry or the construction industry.
That's
and
clever.
So this goes a little bit more back to Josh and I's history with Monster Tree and Redbox.
Right.
Tree service is a pretty competitive space, but yet very fragmented. And we learned very quickly that the best franchisee has no industry experience. And then with our second brand, which is in the waste industry, we actually made it part of our process where we don't even accept conversions for people with waste experience. So now with roofing, if you have roofing experience, you're not the franchisee for us, and that's a kind of an immediate unapproval in our process.
Right.
So we look at it more as a sales and marketing engine that just happens to provide roofing, and that's really where we leverage technology and our national relationships with different marketing lead generation activities.
That's interesting. I did a study, Zach, for years, analyzing data and things like that. And you said something that, just confirmed what I found in the study. You mentioned, your best franchisee has no experience. I actually found something to support that, running data, I kind of looked at job satisfaction, but I thought it was powerful, that you mentioned that. How does technology play a role specifically, when we're talking about Mighty Dog Roofing? How do you gentlemen utilize technology in the business?
We use a lot of technology to not only predict where homes have been that have been damaged by different storms that have come through, but we also have a lot of various technologies from a marketing perspective to really make sure that we're attracting the right people, retargeting those individuals. And then in our point of sale, we use artificial intelligence with drone technology so that when we're actually meeting residential and commercial consumers, we have fully autonomous drones that we're able to just launch while we're standing in the front yard or side yard of a property.
Right.
And the fully autonomous drone is actually doing a full roof scan and identifying all of the potential issues that are present, so that we can give a very detailed report to the consumer. And this is something that many of our competitors are unable to provide, due in part to cost and just the overall scale that's involved to be able to offer this level of service, which then we can increase the level of confidence in the consumers that we're dealing with, both on that residential and commercial side, so that, we really are the authority within the roofing industry. And then more importantly, if there's an insurance claim involved, we've got internal supplementers that work for us that are able to manage and assist in all of the insurance bidding processes for our franchisees, so that when we're actually submitting these reports not only to the customer, but also to the insurance provider, it's really the gospel in being able to really speed up the overall way the transaction is completed and maximize the return on that overall job as well. But it's this level of technology that's really driving a huge competitive advantage for Mighty Dog Roofing franchisees and what's setting them apart from the competition within all markets across the country that we're servicing.
That's amazing.
One of the things
go ahead.
Here with technology is how we're using technology to help our franchisees. Is we have a full-time guy that is working only on the APIs and bringing in information into a very robust dashboard so our franchisees can have visibility into their business and we can have visibility into their business as well. So we're utilizing technology for the franchisees to use as a competitive advantage, but also we want to take technology and use that to help our franchisees really work on their business.
That's amazing. You kind of wonder how they did things before the technology even existed. I mean, as all three of you gentlemen were saying, it just makes things so much more efficient. So it's fantastic. And I guess it's safe to say, I mean, because if we're talking the United States, you're part of a very big industry. I don't know what the numbers are in your industry, but I can assume that it's a big industry and it's a growing industry. Do you gentlemen have any information on the industry?
Zach, you can
it's
take
about
that.
$48 billion industry.
Wow.
And one of the things that we like, where franchising provides a lot of, I would say, support, is that if you look at the top 4 players in this industry, they control less than 3% of the total industry volume.
Wow.
So it's the exact
incredible.
opposite of what you would see in like the burger industry.
Right. That's interesting. Here's a question for all three of you gentlemen, and I guess we can go by turn. But since you got involved with Mighty Dog Roofing, what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since it's becoming part of the brand? And it could even be the part of the Horsepower brand's experience as well. I mean, the question's open to all three of you.
Man, there's been so many things, Marty. There's been so many people that have reached out to us after we launched Mighty Dog and Horsepower brands, and they're reaching out because they saw what we saw originally when we decided to launch Horsepower brands and Mighty Dog Roofing. We wanted to do things, have a brand that's franchisee focused, meaning we're doing things for the franchisees, and we ask questions like, what is a franchisee going to think about this decision? And me being a franchisee with 6 different brands, Zach doing the same, and then Josh with his experience as a franchisor, we're really franchisee focused. And we knew that internally, but so many people see that and see the importance of that, and they're coming to us and they're saying, we love what you're doing, we love why you're doing it. And not only just franchisees and other brands saying that to us, emerging brands or people want to franchise their business are calling us, emailing us, reaching out to us saying, how do we get involved with Horsepower brands? So we originally thought we would have to do a lot of outreach to bring in new service-based brands into the Horsepower family. But man, they've been coming to us, and that's been amazing. Another thing is we are doing so much for our franchisees. We wanted just to over-deliver on what we give to them. And I'm constantly saying to the team, like the internal team, our training team, the marketing team, the ops team, like you guys don't understand, we're doing so much more for our franchisees than any franchise that I've ever been a part of. And we like that, but the franchisees are recognizing that. And especially when we tell vendors or other franchisors what they're doing, they're just like, they're amazed at how much we're actually doing for our franchisees. So those are some of the things that are unique, interesting, that I've been kind of surprised by, is just the outpouring of like people reaching out to us, just recognizing what we're actually doing.
It's a relationship, Erik, isn't it? And it's interesting because, what I got, when I was, studying, all three of you coming together is, as I mentioned earlier, it seems like, you were filling maybe like a void, perhaps maybe in the franchise industry, as you were mentioning, Erik, you kind of wow your franchisees and you go,
a little bit above and beyond what they're even expecting, so you can wow your franchisees, and I think that's so important. And speaking of franchisees, I mean, what types of characteristics do you gentlemen look for in taking on a new franchisee? Because it does seem like you are pretty selective.
Well, to close out the prior question before I answer this one for you, Marty, is I think what's really unique with what we've created at Horsepower Brands, in addition to everything Erik said and the feedback we've gotten, is the fact that we own all of the brands that we're part of. So we are not in the business of just selling franchises. We're in the business of truly being aligned with the franchisees that we're bringing in and making them very successful within the business, which I think is very important. And so characteristics are extremely important on your current question of really the way that we take people through a comprehensive development process that we follow that's typically about 6 to 8 weeks with the individuals that we work through that process up until they come to a discovery day or more of a confirmation day for us, because we really believe once we get people to that discovery day, it's truly a confirmation day for them, because they've got everything they need to really make a decision. And the final two things that they want to do is, meet our team in person and then make sure that they are a true fit for the culture. But some of the major characteristics that we look for, Zach mentioned earlier, no industry experience. We also look for people that are, more importantly, coachable. And that really ties into that no industry experience, because we don't want to really hear from people, well, when I worked for this roofing company, this is how we did things. Or when I worked here, this is how we did this. And so we really want to have that clean foundation to set them up for success. And two other really important things is I think someone really has to have a true passion for wanting to be in business. Forget about the industry, the opportunity, the monetary return that you can get. I think that you really have to have the right reasons and a passion for wanting to be in business for yourself. And that's what we focus on with our people. And the last one is, an optimistic personality, which I believe optimistic people really make better business owners, because they always look on the positive side of things. Being in business for yourself is not easy. As we always say, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Of course.
And so we have no problem looking a candidate in the eyes and saying to them straight up, like, listen, over the next 24 months, you're going to work harder than you've ever worked at any point in your life, but the risk is going to be well worth the reward that you're going to see after you've gone through and really built and developed your business over that first 2-year period. And then they move on to that, very successful phase of, really growing their business, and they can add back to the franchise system, because we believe the strongest asset we have in awarding franchise opportunities is the quality of validation that we have in our existing franchisees. So we're really incentivized as a franchisor to work tirelessly to make our franchisees very successful, because it works full circle, so that rising tide rises all boats.
Of course. Yeah, I think that's a great response, Josh. And what about training? I imagine training has probably changed a little bit. The theme of the show last year, it seemed like everything always went back to COVID, and COVID kind of changed the way training was delivered for most franchise organizations. But what was it like? Maybe before or during COVID, or even like what is it going to go back to? Maybe you could talk a little bit about how training works in the organization.
I think when we looked at training across multiple brands and in the past, and most franchise brands have an onboarding process. You come out to their corporate office, you go through an in-person training, and then you go out to, they come out and help you launch the business at your local level. That's pretty common. We still do that. One of the things that we realize is that you really have to be able to manage and look at the data of how long people go through that process, where are they getting hang-ups. And so we've automated it all through what we call our franchise hub. So that's, for example, for Mighty Dog, that's an 87-point task list that they go through that's automated, so we know how long it takes them to get through the different points. We've also looked out, and in every industry that we're in, we're not putting roofs on differently than anyone else.
Right.
So it'd be foolish for us to try to say that we're the most knowledgeable people in the industry. So we went out and we partnered with a company that does provide some of the best actual digital training. So we have an online curriculum with over, I think it's 120 hours of actual virtual learning.
Wow.
So before they even come to an in-person training here in Omaha, we take them through this platform where they have to go through that virtual learning process. And there's testing aspects that go along with that. But that trains them a lot on the industry, different materials, processes.
Right.
And then they also can pass that down to their employees as well. That way they have a repeatable way to train them, their employees if they have to have turnover or hiring new people, et cetera.
That's terrific. It's so important, Zach. And how do you what is a typical day like for a Mighty Dog roofing franchisee? You mentioned this is more of a, more it seems like sales and marketing type of thing than, of course, installing roofs. But is there such a thing as a typical day? I'm sure every day is a little bit different, isn't it? But how would you describe a typical day?
This one. So as a franchisee, we have found a lot of success in making sure that they are not the hostess, the dishwasher, the server, the cook. They're not doing every position. So we really want them to be the CEO of the organization. So they start out with two major employees that really operate sales and operations. Mm-hmm. And then the franchisee follows what we call our EOS or traction process. So as a corporation or a franchisor, we follow EOS, which is a business operating system for entrepreneurs. Okay. And we push that all the way down to the franchisee. So they're really operating that where they're managing their key employees. They're managing performance on a weekly basis through different scorecards. Right. They're creating relationships within the marketplace. And more importantly, making sure that everything's hitting on all cylinders and then helping the employees battle any fires that pop up throughout the week.
That's great. All three of you are entrepreneurs when I was studying all your backgrounds. So this question could be for all three of you or one of you. But, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? All three of you, Josh, Zach, and Erik, I mean, that there's so much out there today. And we found that, doing this show such a long time, that when someone starts looking for a franchise, sometimes they become a little bit overwhelmed because there's just so much to choose from. So from everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Yeah, Erik Van Horn here. There's really kind of three things that I would leave your audience with today, and I'm trying to do things, maybe answers a little bit different than some people have, because there's a lot of really advice that people give out there. But one of the things that I've said for years is we're looking for decisive people, decisive candidates, people that can actually make a decision. And, I'd like to get a podcast like this and places where, people are learning right now, because once it comes time to make a decision, this is what separates people that to actually be an entrepreneur or if they should just keep their day job, is if they can actually make a decision. And, and we've seen it so many times over the years where people just can't make a decision, and we push them to make a decision. And if they can, they're probably going to be a really good franchisee. And if they can't, it's either the time is not right, most likely the timing is probably never right. So we look for decisive people, and I think anybody that is looking at buying a franchise, you need to be able to be at that point where you give yourself a decision date and stick to it, even though it's hard. Two more things real quick. I think people need to redefine passion. And they may have already redefined it, but so many people want to start a business that they're passionate about. And then they, like Michael Gerber in the E-Myth says, if you start a business that you're passionate about, most of the time that's somebody's dream business originally, and then it turns into a night, because now they're working in the business all the time and they absolutely hate it. And I know your listeners have probably heard that many times. But redefine passion, what it really is that you want. And as you're looking at and I would find a business model that you're passionate about, meaning, like, do you want to work on the business? Do you want to have a certain manager that you want to manage and they're doing a certain type of work? Like, does it provide them the type of lifestyle? When I think about when I give advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, I have them think about the lifestyle that they want to actually have, and is the business going to be an avenue for that lifestyle versus, do you like flipping burgers or cutting flowers or know, whatever it is that I like eating burgers, but I don't like flipping burgers. Finally, I think people take advice from wrong people too many times. If they're getting advice on starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur, they go to their colleagues and that hate their job, and yet they've never pulled the trigger on becoming an entrepreneur. So that's the wrong person to get advice from, because they're going to want to pull you down to where they are, and they don't want you to go and be more successful and have the freedom and have the lifestyle. So if it's me, I'm going to reach out to the most successful franchisees, the most successful entrepreneurs, and get advice from them versus getting advice from my family or friends or coworkers. So that's probably the best advice that I can give.
It's great advice, Erik. Yeah, it is, and it's very original. In your response, and I like how you mentioned Michael Gerber. We had him on the show, I think, 3 times over the last 14 years, and he's amazing. I always recommend to people, when I'm talking to them as well, I say, pick up this book, The Myth Revisited, and just read it, and it might kind of like change your perspective a bit, about how you go about, this whole process based on everything you said. So I think that's fantastic advice. So if you could look into a crystal ball, I'm like maybe 3 years, 5 years down the road, where do you see Mighty Dog Roofing or even Horsepower Brands in general?
So, Marty, I think for us as entrepreneurs, when we look at business opportunities, irregardless of the industry, most of the industries we get into are very fragmented, lack a lot of professionalism. And so obviously our number one mission is to become an industry leader within the industry that we're in and have great coverage across the U.S. But more importantly, we want to make sure that we're elevating the level of professionalism. And I've personally experienced that in all of my prior businesses where we've been able to come in and really, wake the sleeping horse, if you will, and really get the competition to realize, like, wow, there's a level of professionalism that's been lacking that we really need to get onto our A game.
Right.
And so we not only look to be leaders within the industry, create great partnerships with all of the vendors and suppliers that we work with and become some of their primary and largest purchasers of the products that they sell, but we also want to elevate that level of professionalism industry-wide. And I think for the consumers, we're a great steward for, getting to them that high level of customer service that they look for. And so when we as a team really look at the way that we build out sales processes and marketing processes within any business that we're part of, we think about how do we as consumers purchase ourselves? And what do we like and dislike about those processes that we go through on a daily basis? And then say, if we like this part of the process or we dislike this part of the process, well, then we want to make sure that we focus on the things that we all like and really wrap our whole strategy around that side of it. So we streamline the purchasing process for our businesses, because ultimately at the end of the day, our number one focus for our franchisees is to make sure that we've developed a business with systems, support, and strategies that allow them to focus on the things that make them money in their business, and that's sales of the services we provide and production of those services. And we've got to have streamlined approaches to all of that. So that's the best way that I would really answer it from a growth strategy. Is it's much more robust than let's just be number one or let's just be the biggest. We try to bring the community focus into that and elevating the overall experience to our customers.
What's the best way, Josh, for our listeners to get more information on Mighty Dog Roofing, Horsepower Brands? Are there any websites that you want to kind of like direct them to or any numbers you want them to call?
Yeah, so 2 main websites. For Mighty Dog Roofing, you can find us at mightydog.roofing.com.
Okay.
And for Horsepower Brands, you will find us at horsepowerbrands.com. And our contact info is there. And obviously all major social media outlets, you can reach out to myself, Josh Skolnick, Erik Van Horn, and Zach Beutler. And we're happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
That's fantastic. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to all 3 of you gentlemen today, Josh, Zach, and Erik, and it's been a pleasure for me. And I'd like to invite you back, over the next year or 2 as you continue to grow, because I think these are wonderful concepts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you, gentlemen. This has been my pleasure. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, Don and I have been hosting Franchise Interviews now almost 6 years, if you can imagine, and it's amazing to see how far the show's come. You know, we frequently joke around that, you know, when we started the show, we started off with about 5 listeners. I think it was my mom, Don's wife, my wife, and a couple of friends and family, and that was it. And, you know, to date, we're over 4,000 listeners on a monthly basis between our radio show and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising, and, of course, our website, Franchise Interviews. So we've never done this before, but want to thank everyone for making this show such a tremendous success. During that time, 6 years of doing the show, we've had some incredible quotes on the show, and if you're a frequent listener to the show, you know what fans Don and I are of the legendary Michael Gerber. And you could take any clip or any segment from an interview we've done with Michael, and it's probably noteworthy of being in the Great Quotes in Franchising podcast, but this, I have to say, is certainly one of my favorites, and I've shared this with my students since I've heard this great quote. So here we go with the legendary Michael Gerber.
Having people stretch their imagination and to dream even bigger than what they were previously doing.
Absolutely.
And make it constructive, of course.
Yeah, because I'm actually saying that people don't fail because they dream too big. People fail because they dream too small. People fail because they don't rise above where their experience would lead them. People fail because they don't truly begin to dare to imagine something that they've never actually imagined before. And as I bring people into the dreaming room, as people participate with me, they begin to experience something they have never experienced, or if they had experienced, they'd experienced it years ago, but in some way lost the ability to dream. So it's a remarkable thing. I never would have told you I'd be doing it, but in fact I see it as the absolutely essential piece to anybody who wants to do anything, let alone buy a franchise. The beginning of that process is to dream.
You know, it's really like an awakening. I mean, in life, there's just so much that can just, I guess sort of beat you down a little bit. Life's not easy, and there's work, and there's family, and I guess over time that maybe you just don't have the time or just forget about something simple like dreaming. So you're really just reintroducing it to people, kind of waking them up again, so to speak.
Well, I'm reintroducing the question, what in the hell am I here for?
Right.
What is my life? And time goes on for all of us, and it's tick-tock, tick-tock, and time goes on, and I simply become immersed in all of the doing it that I've committed myself to. And I never stop to really ask, is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to do? Is this really the entire purpose of my life? Is this really going to give me the experience that I truly am hungry for, the joy that I truly am missing right now? What in the world am I doing with myself? And I'm simply suggesting, without asking that question, in a very, very provocative way, people miss the most extraordinary opportunities that they will never see until they begin to ask the question, then who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? And these questions begin to provoke some very, very serious introspection, and that's critical for anybody who is, as you say, sitting there about to think about going off on their own, about buying a business, about buying a franchise, or about creating a business of their own. Critical, and nobody's talking about it.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So it's a critical element to entrepreneurial success, Michael. All this dreaming, I think you mentioned in the manuscript, it gives you fuel to stay up late and get up early in the morning.
Well, that's where the juice comes from.
Absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine Michael Dell creating Dell Computer? I mean, you think about that. He was a college student
right,
who began to diddle with this idea, the big idea, the great result, and he created this stunning company, this extraordinary company that does what it does in a way that nobody else imagined it could be done, taking a commodity, a computer, and turning it into a product, a true invention. The way in which Dell provides customized computers in a standardized process. Customized, standardized, an extraordinary idea that rules the world today. And yet you don't hear that expression in most places. And certainly you don't hear it in franchising. Customized, standardized. How do you do that? Well, that requires entrepreneurial imagination and verve. And that's what creates absolutely stunning companies. So if you're going to do that, you might as well do something in the business you're about to create that truly transforms.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.